Good morning, everyone, or whatever time of the day it is for you guys, and welcome to Q&A number 7. And lots of people have been sending questions in, so keep them coming. I really like just reading through them. I've been answering some of them, not in the videos, just because I've been getting quite a few. But yeah, any questions you've got, drop them in the comments below, and I love going through and answer them for you. And I love hearing all your feedback, so keep it coming. So jumping into the questions, I've got 4 questions today, 2 of which are a little bit similar, so they'll be answered all at the same time. But the first question is from JigBS. Welcome back. I've followed your videos for a while along with another YouTube contributor and managed to hone some surprising skills in VBA. I don't know why you were surprised, but anyway, one thing I have trouble getting my head around is the module structure. I've started using public variables and separate modules for things like form controls and events, referring to them in subs and separate modules. This seems to help me reduce my code dramatically, which is always a good thing in my mind, less to go wrong. Perhaps you could put together a high-level series on your technique for application structure and not so much code-centric. Thanks for all your help. And so, yes, so I think from the sounds of what you're doing, it does sound like you're going to be getting a lot more efficient with your coding. Separating things out into separate modules for specific things and referring to them elsewhere is always a good idea. And then also setting up specific functions and subs that do your work, do specific things, and then calling them from around your code is a lot better because you've just got one central place then that you need to update them from, and you don't have to write as much code. You don't have to copy and paste stuff everywhere. You should very rarely be copy and pasting things in your code. You should always be kind of referencing to functions and things like that, because that's built-in copy and paste that is a little bit more future-proof. So it sounds like you've got a pretty good methodology going on. Public variables I tend to avoid. I'll generally use passing variables around through functions. So if you have a function and then you either use byval if you just want to pass the value of a variable through, or byref if you want to pass the actual reference to that variable so your function can change the one back in the other function. I've talked about scope in other videos, so I'm not going to go through it again. But and then passing variables back using your kind of as double, and then my function equals blah, 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 blah. And that's an official number. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so I generally do that rather than public variables. The only thing I use public variables for really, and you might have seen this, is if I have one that I use called dbcomp, which just represents a database connection, and I use that whenever I'm using ADODB, just because it's useful to have one connection open in your workbook to one database rather than lots of different connections, because that just adds unnecessary stress to your database. But that's literally the only time I really use public variables. I tend to avoid them else, just because they're a little bit haywire. In terms of how I set up my codes, I'll have anything relevant, so like button clicks and events in each of the sheets, just so you can see that from the sheet. But then anything which is, that's just like controlling where it's looking, and then I'll usually have my global module down here in just normal modules, and this will be anything that I use in lots of different workbooks or projects and isn't in relation to just this project. So database connection functions, kind of random number generators, SQL validation things, so that validate your SQL strings so that people can't add in erroneous things and stuff. I stick all that in there, so just general stuff goes in what I call the global module. And then I'll have modules split out that do specific tasks that relate to a specific feature in your project. Anything to do with forms will just go in the code that sits behind the form. But again, if there's any kind of actual doing things, that will generally go that aren't specific to the form, they'll generally go out into modules as well. The form will just be kind of button clicks and things like that. Generally just events that happen off of it. So anything you see in this list, generally these are the ones that go in the sheets and the forms, and then everything else goes in the modules. And then last but not least, obviously class modules go off in their own class ones, but I don't often use class modules. Generally, VBA projects don't have a requirement to be that complicated, I've found. And also quite a lot of people don't know what they are, so if you start using them, then when you pass it on to someone else, they get a little bit confused when you have to explain what class modules are. So I generally avoid them. Anyway, so hopefully that helps answer your question a bit. In terms of a series, I might put something together. I'm thinking of putting together a kind of Let's Code series. I don't know if I've already said that already, but hopefully that should help in terms of kind of high level how I work, because I'll just go through, we'll have a project and I'll work through it together on screen and show exactly how I work and how my kind of creation process works, so to speak. Which that's what it is. If you're creating quite big projects, then it suddenly becomes a little bit creative and you have to think a little bit more structured, and it's not just about copy and pasting code off of the internet. Anyway, so thanks for that question. Good question. I'm glad that my videos are helping you. If you've got any other questions, drop them in. So the next question is from Josh Elliott Voiceovers, assuming do voiceovers, which might be quite interesting. Anyway, if I had a sheet on my workbook with a list of 100 emails on sheet 2, how would I reference that in the code in the .2 area so that I can send this to a wide audience and not just one person? So let's say we've got our emails in here. So I've got just a few emails I've put in. And then we want to be able to reference them in our code. So let's just put a function together. So function combine emails, and then by val a range as range, and then as string. And then what this should do is if we just do for each c in range dot cells next C. So this is going to loop through all of the cells in your range. And then we just want to create ourselves a string over here. So dim combined string as string. Then we just want to set combined string equals combined string ampersand, and then we want to, well, first of all, let's just put, we want it to be, we want to add on the c.value first of all. So combine string and c.value, and then we also want to add on a semicolon, which will act as kind of a delimiter in our two fields and just split them. So that semicolon will then go into your .2 and it'll split each one each time. So when that comes through and you run this, we just want to then take the last letter off of combined string. So combined string equals left combined string length of combined string -1. So that will just get rid of the last semicolon because we're going to get one extra that we don't want. And then we just set combine emails equals combined string. And now that should give you a string back that combines those together. So let's say we put another sub down here, so sub my sub just ready to run. So let's say dim my range as, oh, let's just call it straight away. So message box combine emails this workbook dot sheets sheet 2 dot range, and then we want A1 to A3, close bracket, and then when we press play on this, it's going to become We want a range, press play. And then you see it's going to give us email 1, semicolon, email 2, semicolon, email 3. So we put that in our .to field. So you wouldn't do it .message, you'd do .to equals combine emails. So hopefully that helps for you. Obviously you're going to need to set your range to be whatever the actual email list is. But yeah, hopefully that helps and shows you how you can do that. Right guys, so my last 2 questions are from Jarvis Lorela and a very similar question from Rixman4. So first of all, hi, I successfully made the code, but do not know how to use it in my spreadsheet. I tried making the formula search function equals send mail, but Excel does not recognize it. My goal is to automatically send email once certain condition in my Excel file is met. Do you have a video on how to do this? Thanks in advance. And hey, also tutorial, but I was wondering how to link that button. I mean, I wanted to open another page when clicking on it. Is that possible? So these are both questions asking how you kind of initiate your code. So there's a few different ways of doing this. And if I just show you the 2 you kind of asked for here. So you've asked for essentially an event, and this one's asking for a button click. So if we go across to, let's just do it on sheet 2. So say we want to activate this send mail off of these emails when we do it. Basically, what we want to do is just go to our developer tab on our ribbon, which you can do by customizing the ribbon, and then just adding it in your developer tab over here. But we go into our developer tab, go to insert, and then go to ActiveX controls. And then you can insert a command button. Now, I've already recorded this video once, and there was an update back in December 2014 that stopped some of these from working, these ActiveX controls. It's quite an easy fix to do. You just have to run some script, which I'll put a link to the description below if yours has started doing the same thing as mine had started doing. Apparently it's quite a common problem, and it's something that Microsoft are trying to fix with more general updates rather than just you having to run script or go in and deleting eXD files, which is what the script does for you. But anyway, so we put a command button in. If you right click and go into properties, then you can change things such as the color, the style. We're going to change the caption so that to say push me, as a button should do. Well, what else would a button say? Anyway, so we're in design mode. If you click out of design mode, then that button becomes pushable. If you're in design mode, then you can double click on it and you can move it around and things. Now this creates us a sub here, which is essentially an event. So whenever we click the button, whatever code you put in here is going to run. So we can we could copy this, so we could put message box and then combine emails. So we could cut that, put it in here. We can call other functions and things. If we close this off, come out of design mode and then press this now, you'll see it comes up with our function message box that's asking it to do this. Similarly, you can do events. So if we go into our view code, so if you want to do it when something changes in the workbook, then just click on this drop down and select your worksheet. And then selection change is going to run whenever you do any changes to the selection, or if you do change or calculate are quite good ones as well, or even activate as you go into the worksheet, then those are also quite good ones to have. So if I'm going to do change, and then again, if we just set it to call our function, obviously you're probably going to want it to do a different thing. So let's do our change, get rid of selection change, get rid of our command button, etc. Now, if we change something in our worksheet, so let's say we type something in here, then it's going to run our thing, and every time we do it, it's going to run our code. Now, if you wanted to do it based on certain criteria that people have filled in, then you just need to whack in a couple of if statements in here so that it tests the if statements before running your function that does the stuff that you actually want it to do. So hopefully that's helpful and that explains. Any further questions, please drop them in. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And please hit on the like button or the subscribe button if you really like this video. So thank you and goodbye.